Hello and welcome to the next episode of the MythBusters series, where together with the top-notch industry experts, I'm debunking the most popular marketing myth. My name is Olga Olifirenko. I'm product marketing lead of Retainly, an all-encompassing customer engagement platform from Ukraine. I'm excited to introduce you to my guest, Bryan Oldham, Chief Marketing Officer at Rival Fantasy, with whom I'm going to debunk the most popular myth of personalization in iGaming. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Olga. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Cannot complain. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much. Broadcasting from Kiev. So greetings from Ukraine to everyone who are watching us live or who will watch the recording. So our goal for today is to shed the light on the most popular myth in personalization in iGaming, and given the sensitive topic of the iGaming space, I think that you could, better than anyone else, share your experience. But before we proceed, would you mind sharing a bit of your background and tell us more about Rival Fantasy?
Absolutely. Thanks, Olga. I originally started my career in U.S. politics, of all things, and got my degree in political science, and then quickly realized that was not the route I wanted to go to. Then became a digital marketer. I've held positions from copywriter and SEO specialist to digital strategist, and everything in between. And now am working as the chief marketing officer at Rival Fantasy. I stopped off at companies like Hewlett Packard, stopped off at companies like Hawke Media, and then Tulsa Innovation Labs. So all great places to work. So now I'm leading the marketing charge at Rival Fantasy, which is we're calling it the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. And so currently we have 3 daily fantasy sports games that you can't play anywhere else, especially here in the States. And then come this fall of 2023 for the American football season, we'll have your traditional season-long fantasy. So we'll have everything you need in one place where players never have to go anywhere else if they don't want to.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and for such an intro. I know Rival Fantasy pretty well because we are cooperating together. So
Mhm.
I'm super excited to have you here and to talk about the myth. So let's dive into our first myth. And it says that personalization in a gaming space leads to gambling addiction. What would you say?
Yeah, it's interesting that that's the causation that some people like to point to as a reason behind gambling addiction. As you said at the top, it's a very sensitive topic to begin with, and then adding this layer to it is, another. Again, it's sensitive all around. But I don't think that when you personalize a person's experience, it makes them any more or less susceptible to addiction, especially in the gaming sphere. You know, it's a it's a very large, wide sweeping myth that it's hard to pinpoint what causes it and what does not. But I don't think that when you personalize a person's experience on any given platform, that's the rationale behind any other behavior that could lead to addiction.
But what about the background of this myth or the origin, if I may?
Yeah, and I think it comes from especially here in the United States, it comes from this sort of old wives' tale that when people gamble, they get addicted to the rush of winning, and they're constantly chasing that the feeling of being on top again. And I think the it also it's what I call the prohibition conundrum. In the 1920s here in the States, when alcohol was
Banned.
illegal,
Yeah.
people were hungrier for it, and it became more prevalent. It just went underground. Same thing here, I think, when until 2018, when gambling was re-legalized here in the States, people weren't, they were going offshore, or they were spending all of their time in Las Vegas in order to gamble. And I think when you see a purposeful decision like that, that might be where the myth really stems from in this day and age.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking this. But if we come back to the origin of the myth and to the fact that people are addicted to something that is strictly forbidden or banned, it comes to responsible gambling, right? And lots of companies nowadays are striving to act like responsible in terms of personalization in iGaming. So according to your experience, how do businesses deal with this myth? So, what are their actions to make sure that they behave responsibly, and that they do not feed the myth with other stories?
Yeah, and it's an interesting topic because again, here in the States, this problem wasn't really a problem until the last 5-6 years, right? Where it became the operators' uh, responsibility to implement responsible gaming measures. And so I think what we're starting to see now with a lot of these companies, especially the larger sports books that operate both digitally and in brick and mortar, their advertising campaigns are becoming centered around responsible gaming and ensuring uh, that people are taking proper steps before they even enter into some sort of some contests, right? And you're also seeing more legislation being introduced and discussed consistently as more locales begin opening up the floodgates for iGaming and for online gambling. Then you're seeing state legislators, you're seeing the federal legislator here in the States. They're all taking different measures in order to implement safeguards that are preventative rather than chasing the issue in the recovery stage, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I actually wanted our audience to hear, that the legislation is built around the fact of preventing addiction or any sort of addiction. So now we're smoothly running to the second myth, which says that personalization is intrusive and it invades privacy. What's your take on this?
Um, it's funny because on one hand, personalization can feel intrusive, but on the other hand, there's never, generally speaking, from a marketing perspective, there isn't anything done with personalization that users have not opted into in one way or another, which sounds like a cop out because none of us read the terms and conditions, myself included. But all of these things are there, and generally what you're getting into anytime you enter into some sort of, for all intents and purposes, these are contracts, right? But the intrusive and invading the privacy, I don't think we've ever had more legislation or more regulation around privacy in the digital sphere than we've found in the last probably decade. And that just continues, again, to my point earlier of legislation. We're continuing to see these safeguards and these sort of floors put in where there are higher and higher minimum requirements that have to be met in order for operators to use this personal data.
And I guess it's not related to iGaming space only. Well, the GDPR covers all aspects of engagement with customers, right? So you shouldn't necessarily talk about iGaming when you talk about the privacy. But in the iGaming space, it's even more and more high than in any other sphere. But when do you think does the personalization become really intrusive if we say in iGaming? Because you've mentioned that not all personalization can be treated like intrusive, right? But there is a certain extent. What's that extent to your thinking?
I think when personalization gets to the point of it almost feels like it's reading your thoughts or listening to your conversations, which we all seem to think has happened before. We've all had the strange experience of talking about something with a friend or a family member, and then 5 minutes later you get an ad for a related topic on Facebook.
They are listening to us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it always feels like there's someone listening and watching. And so I think when you have that sense of not necessarily it taking over your life, but it being a consistent presence in your advertising, in your social media feeds, in all you're seeing are gambling related movies and TV recommendations, things like that. All of your emails, all of your paper mail becomes related to gaming in some way. When it becomes an all encompassing and blanketing aspect of your life, I think that's when we've taken it too far, and there needs to be operators need to pump the brakes in order to maintain a level of trust.
Have you ever witnessed a situation when your customer felt like an object under investigation? I mean, so everything from like first name, last name, which is not a personalization as we treat nowadays in the modern marketing. However, something even more. What's your take on this?
I think that it goes back a little bit to what we were saying earlier about the legislation and some of the rules that go into it. And I think because they're, especially in iGaming, operators are under more and more scrutiny all of the time to ensure that the user is in a locale where they're allowed to be participating, that they have funds necessary to do this, that they're not on any self-exclusion lists, things of that nature, right? And because all of that information is required in order to even allow users past a certain point on a lot of these platforms and operations, it's now a balancing act of, okay, we have all of this information and we know the legal requirements or the right way to use it in order to verify, and then what do we do with it after? Apart from keeping it safe and making sure that the data isn't leaked, it's a question of, okay, how far is too far in using, we know this person's email address, we know this person's age, we know their gender, so sometimes you even know their income level based on which operator is asking and what they're asking for. So I think it comes down to the operators having a better understanding of how far is too far, what are users going to generally be comfortable with, and then implementing that rather than just saying they're going to implement that.
Thank you. I'm noting down the phrase "how far is too far." I think that's the slogan of today's meeting, how far of personalization. But what's your take on the positive side of personalization in iGaming? How it helps businesses better serve their customers?
Yeah, I think personalization, it's something that makes you feel like you're getting the most out of any given platform. Again, we're in an age where there's a new product popping up every 5 minutes. There's a new operator entering the space. And if somebody doesn't like the way the UX works for them, they're going to move on. If somebody doesn't like your marketing collateral, they'll just go to the guy next door, right? And so personalization has this aspect of making users feel, again, the balancing act of, is it intrusive or not, but also making it feel a little more intimate, like it's a one-on-one relationship rather than having a relationship with some publicly traded company, a large corporation, faceless name in a suit in an office building. So I think for the user, it's about ease of use, but also comfortability and familiarity. And that's what personalization can lead to.
If we speak about Rebel Fantasy, what type of personalization are you leveraging with your team?
Yeah. So the biggest one we're using right now, one of our games is called Challenges. So it's a head-to-head fantasy challenge. You pick 2 players, but we've added a new dimension to it called social challenges, where you get to create your own challenge and then send it to a friend who can take up the other side. So that's our big initiative right now as far as personalization goes on the platform. We're really focused on making, bringing kind of this intimacy and this the relationship based gaming back to the fantasy sports community. And as far as our advertising and our operations go, I think personalization, especially in email and SMS and that sort of setting, because that is really the only data now that operators like us, like anyone in the space, really owns anymore. Because it has been voluntarily given to us, we have to again balance the idea of we want to reach out, we want to use your name, we want you to know you're not just another number on the platform that's just gaming. Like, we understand what you like, what you don't like, and then that leads to understanding what players are playing more often than not, and then giving them recommendations based on that, so that their experience is as seamless and as fun for them as possible.
And that actually leads us to the third myth, where we will cover more customer side. And the myth is that personalization only benefits iGaming operators. So, what are the advantages of personalization for the players based on your experience?
So this is the what I've coined as the there's nothing on TV enigma, right? So with basic cable for a long time, even with streaming services now, the odds of you spending more time trying to find something to watch is pretty high compared to the amount of time you actually spend watching something.
Yeah.
Now that's an over exaggeration, certainly, but imagine you really like competition cooking shows or something like that, and that's what you go to Netflix for, and then instead I show you three different slides of true crime documentaries and very heavy award-winning movies, right? It doesn't have the same effect on you because it's not showing you things that you like to watch, similar to when you're on Amazon or you're on DoorDash, and Amazon showing you products. For me, if it's showing me cat toys, but I have a dog, right? It's
Yeah.
not going to do anything for me. Versus, you say with DoorDash, if it's showing me foods that I'm allergic to, and it doesn't understand that I've entered my allergies or something like that in, it diminishes the impact that the platform has on you, right? And so it's going to be the same for any user in iGaming, where they're getting just as much out of the personalization for their experience as the operators are for delivering that experience and showing them kind of where to go.
I fully agree. And given the fact that lots of businesses are now striving to get clients' attention, and the attention span is too small, so the more quicker you engage with the customers and the less choice you give them actually works best. And I know that we've been discussing with you behind the things that there is a kind of there was an experiment once in Stanford, if I recollect it correctly, right? About the behavior of consumers, and it's very applicable to the iGaming space. Would you mind covering a bit more over here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe it was in 2000. A couple of researchers from Stanford and Columbia universities, they conducted which was what was basically the equivalent of a market research experiment, and they went into several different grocery stores, and on one day they laid out a table that had 24 different jam selections and asked potential customers to try them all and sample them and buy the one they liked the best. And their conversion rate on that was extremely low. I want to say it was under 20% of the amount of people who bought, but I'm not entirely sure on those statistics. But then they went back and reverted the experiment to instead include a much smaller amount of jam selections the next time around, and their conversion rate skyrocketed. So I want to say it was anywhere from 2 to 4 jam selections in the second round. So I mean that it's a very it's a very rudimentary explanation of it, but it shows that when you have more and more choices, kind of like on Netflix, right? Same principle. You're overloaded because you get a little bit of FOMO, you get a little bit of fear of missing out,
Yeah.
and then you're also wondering, oh, did I make the right choice? Did I, would this have been better for me if I had gone, right instead of left? Things like that. So same with iGaming, it's going to be, why would I show somebody who plays poker, slot games when they are very obviously playing online poker, or in the sports capacity? I'm not going to show, if somebody is betting on baseball constantly, I'm not going to show them hockey, right? That's because we can kind of figure out based on your patterns and your actions what you like, because you're not going to do something you don't like when you're putting your money up like this.
Yeah, but what if the league is over and you still want to nurture your existing customers, your existing players, and you understand that they can feel this FOMO again when there is nothing for them to be engaged in?
Yeah, and so that's a unique situation too, especially in the sports arena, where you're right. When the season ends, or you're playing in a traditional fantasy league, and you already know you're out of the running, um, and so that it goes back a little bit to the not overloading people with. We don't want to inundate them and saturate their lives with these options. It has to be sparing at first, so that way people understand, hey, this is an option if you're interested. Come try it out, see what it's like, without putting an amount of pressure on users. That I think it's a delicate balance to strike, but I do think it's important that users feel comfortable with trying new things without the consistent pressure of feeling like they're missing out on everything and have to be trying it all.
Thank you for such a detailed explanation. So we briefly touched the paradox of choices, right? So if a person is presented with too many choices, he or she is actually likely less likely to buy. But what is the situation with the variety of available games now for all players all around? I mean, the personalization engine can actually save their time and propose only those games they are really interested in. However, the choice is still there. How do companies behave? I mean, iGaming companies behave to nurture their clients.
Yeah, I think with this, there needs to be a nice media blend. So with the personalization, the big move now has been push notifications, and then some combination of email and SMS, because again, it's owned, it's intimate, and it's an opportunity for operators to show these options and these opportunities at a given time or a given locality, without being too intrusive. Right, a lot of these options, after a while, there are certain parameters that have to be met. So it's if you've done if you've made 10 bets on Yankees players, right? At that point, then we'll start sending you push notifications for, hey, the Yankees first pitch is at 7 p.m. Make sure you get in your bets now, or whatever the case is. So I think it's about setting thresholds that users can reach before you start inundating them with too many personalized choices.
So again, how far is too far here, right?
Right.
What are your most preferable channels for personalization at Rival Fantasy?
So big personalization play will it's going to be push notifications for us. It's that seems to be where a lot of at least the fantasy sports industry is moving, and I do think that as time goes on, a great example is with the NBA playoffs are happening right now. They started a couple nights ago. I've been getting push notifications for that on some platforms, but I don't really play NBA, and so there comes a question of, okay, how many times do we send out these push notifications and there's no reply? similar to, how many times do we run an ad and it gets impressions but no conversions, right? It's so you have to pull back a little bit and understand it is okay to admit something didn't work and people don't like something, and then move away from it and segment accordingly. And I think that's where a lot of the issue comes to, is there's a lack of desire to segment users, and it's kind of become a dirty word in some circles, especially after Meta sunsetted their
Yeah.
segmentation and interest based targeting, right? And so now, given all of those changes to the digital marketing landscape at large, it's more a question of restraint versus oversaturation.
Thank you. What would you recommend, maybe like top 3 recommendations from you to other iGaming businesses in terms of personalization?
I'd say slow down, pump the brakes is number one. Give your customers time to use the platform and collect data at a rate that will feel slow, especially for small companies and large companies. Everyone wants to advance faster. So I'd say pump the brakes is number one. Number two is pick and choose where you're going to personalize. So try it on one channel first. So for us, whether that be email or SMS or push, pick one to start, see how personalization versus non-personalized works, and then go all in or move on if you notice whatever the results are one way or another. And then number three, I think, is have some levity to it. It's the industry iGaming. You can either go very, very serious, or it becomes overly whimsical to the point where it seems a little ridiculous. And I think there's a happy medium that can be struck of, not everything has to be high stakes, winning $1 million, and not everything has to be, oh, you're just playing penny slots for the heck of it, right? So I think finding the middle ground in your messaging and having some relatability in that messaging is super important now.
Thank you. So it's kind of pump the brakes, simplify the processes, right? And make sure that you know how far is too far
Yeah.
before you go to be oversaturated at your customer space. All right, let's open the floor for questions. I've seen some comments already. I wanted to tell the audience that we're going to provide some branded gifts for the questions. So please, this is your time. We have the first question. Do you think there is still room for personalization development? Has it already reached its maximum manifestations and capabilities?
I definitely think there is still room, especially as we see. I know you've talked to several people about AI and where AI is going now, but those products, there's something new every day. And the longer time goes on, as we see this paradigm shift with, Google kind of sunsetting their third party cookies and then the rise of AI kind of stepping in, I think those tools are going to show us a new type of personalization. I don't know what that'll look like. It's again, with how rapid everything changes, it's hard to estimate, but I don't think we've reached the top yet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We still have a couple of minutes for the questions and some comments. Thank you. Guess people like our session. All right. Thank you so much for your insights, Bryan. I know that the topic is very sensitive. It has lots of misconceptions around it. And rumor has it that lots of legislation will get updated day by day. However, we're still here, and let us leave this chat and the recording open for the questions. Oh, we do have one more, but in case someone watches the recording, so please put your questions. We will make sure that Bryan takes them. Can you give any advice to smaller companies how to overplay competitors that spend tons of money on personalization? Thank you for the question.
Great question, Olivia. So I think this is going to be a little counterintuitive based on digital marketing, and that's the topic of the day. But I think it comes down to the original version of personalization, which is word of mouth. So smaller companies really benefit from tapping into a more grassroots approach, I think. So whether that's localized events, whether that's using your network, finding friends and family who want to play first, and then using that ripple effect, because personalization first and foremost is, hey, I trust this person to play along and appreciate my opinion, and in turn the recipient of that is getting a personalized recommendation from somebody they trust on a new product. So I know it seems a little counterintuitive, but I think using things like referral systems, especially in iGaming, bonuses and referrals for bringing in friends and having an impetus for sharing with your existing network is a very powerful and understated tool nowadays.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we don't have questions so far. Bryan, thanks a lot for participation and for insightful discussion. Let's meet together here for the next MythBusters episode happening in 2 weeks. And I'm now happy to reveal my next guest, who will be head of PR at MacPo, Julia Patrick. So please don't miss it. And see you soon. My name is Olga Olifirenko, product marketing lead at Retainly, and I'm debunking the most popular marketing myth with the top-notch industry experts. Take care and bye.